On today's Locked On Jayhawks, we're going to be talking some football, basketball crossover questions between some award possibilities. Could Jalen Daniels or Hunter Dickinson win their respected Player of the Year award in their sport? We're going to get on to whose stat line is it anyway. Plenty more on today's episode with Nick Schwerdt.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Derek Johnson. You can hear me as well Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. on KLWN in Lawrence with Rock Chalk Sports Talk. Nick Schwerdt joins me today, and he kind of teased last week that you're going to be able to hear him on some upcoming stuff. So I don't know if he can release that yet, but I don't know. Nick, where can people find your work?
Right now, you know what? Just find me on Twitter. Find me on social media. I'm on Threads, man. No, nothing official. We haven't launched yet. This is like, when your friend is having a baby and then you're the one trying to break the news to the world that I'm having a baby. This new venture is going to be my figurative baby. I don't have any children, so you don't get to make the announcement that I'm pregnant. All right, that's my announcement. I will make it on my own time. But thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
All right. Well, on today's episode, we're going to have some fun crossover questions between football and basketball. More likely to do this or that. We've got a whose stat line is it anyway. Let's just get right into the show. First crossover question I have for you here. These are between the Kansas Jayhawk football season upcoming here in 2023 and the basketball season for 23-24. Who is more likely to win their Player of the Year respected award? So for basketball, the Naismith, or I don't know, there's a billion of them, right? So any of them, or the Heisman for Jalen Daniels. Who's more likely, Jalen Daniels or Hunter Dickinson, to win that prestigious award?
I think you have to go with Hunter Dickinson, even though Jalen Daniels was one of the Heisman frontrunners before he went down. It's hard to say frontrunner when you're not even halfway through the season, but according to Vegas odds, he was one of the 5 most likely players. I think he was 5th or 4th in Heisman odds before that TCU game. But the answer has to be Hunter Dickinson for a couple of reasons. First, if we just look at the differences in sports and how those awards are handed out, the Heisman year after year after year is often won by a guy that wasn't one of the front runners at the beginning of the year. Now, I know Caleb Williams, not necessarily the case, but there are so often guys like Jalen Daniels last year who jumped up out of nowhere and made themselves candidates. Meanwhile, in basketball, there's more staying power, and Hunter Dickinson is a perfect example of that, right? He came on the scene as a freshman, was one of the best players in the country, and has continued to be one of the best players in the country since then, even though the teams that he's played on haven't been great. You can't do that in football. You can't be a prodigious stat sheet stuffer while your team is 6-6 and still be a Heisman candidate. Hunter Dickinson is going to be on a top 25 team in the country. Even if you don't think Kansas is going to be a national championship contender, he is going to be on a top 25 team in the country. He is probably going to put up, let's just say conservatively, 20 and 10 per game. That right there probably puts you on one of the first 2 All-American teams. And that means you're one of the top 10 players in the country, you got a decent chance at winning National Player of the Year. So it's just much, much easier in the position that he's in for Dickinson to win it over Daniels.
Yeah, I think betting odds have Dickinson around 12-1, 15-1 range. Jalen is like 80-1, which I was surprised it was necessarily that high.
I saw that.
Yeah, I wonder if this is a difference. I guess you do have Caleb Williams with this in football, that's a clear roadblock. Then again, guys like never win second Heisman. It's only happened one time ever, so it's very difficult. But with Hunter Dickinson, the Zach Edey roadblock in front of you, like it's with Zach Edey for Purdue, the way he doesn't win Player of the Year is if Purdue is just, I don't know, they're a 3 or 4 seed in the NCAA tournament, because this isn't like a point guard who it's like, well, last year he shot 40% from 3. What if this year he only shoots 33%? He's 7'4". Like the floor on what he's going to do is going to be 20 and 10 every night. So I do wonder if there is a bit more of a roadblock there. And with Jalen Daniels, maybe you could follow that like RG3 path when they won. I think they were 8-4 in the regular season. I can't remember if they won 9 games in the regular season. I know they won their bowl game, so maybe that got them to 9. And he won the Heisman that year because it was, I think, not only did you have this dynamic quarterback who was really good, but you had kind of the shock and awe of, Baylor up until RG3 was running on a decade plus of basically being where Kansas was over the last, decade. Not quite as bad, but kind of near that, the basement of the Big 12. And you had the shock and awe of, oh, Baylor's actually good. What has this guy done? Like, I wonder if you get that at all, if Jalen Daniels can get Kansas to even like 8 wins.
Well, I mean, you look last year at, I'll start first with basketball. You look last year, Oscar Tshiebwe was reigning National Player of the Year. We thought he was going to go pro, comes back, big NIL deal. And all of a sudden we say, okay, well, this guy's just going to win it again. And his stats dipped just a little bit. And Kentucky was just a little bit worse than they were the year before. He was still an All-American, but that's the difference between being the National Player of the Year and an All-American. A slight statistical drop-off, and maybe the team's not quite as competitive. You kind of laid it out. That could easily happen for Zach Edey, and often is the case, whether it's Heisman or National Player of the Year in basketball. If you win it and come back, you have to be better. You cannot be as good. You have to be better the next year, because now the voters are judging you off your own standards as well as everybody else in the country. With Jalen Daniels, I wonder too if there is a curve because he's on Kansas. Like, you could be on Baylor, but Baylor's had success in the last 10 years. Whereas at Kansas, yeah, if you get to 7 wins, if you get to 8 wins, I think 7 probably wouldn't be enough. But if you get to 8 wins and your stats are undeniable, you got to think that that's going to at least put him in consideration. The hard part for him is that all it takes is one guy on a team with 10 wins to have stats that are just similar to yours. Because if that is the case, and we see this all the time, like, there are guys at smaller schools with less success that are putting up crazy numbers. I know you dig through them all the time. Those guys aren't Heisman candidates because they're not winning enough games. So ultimately, I think the threshold, I think we even discussed this last year. I think we talked about this early in the season, like how many wins and how many touchdowns would Jalen Daniels have to get? And I think you could just probably rehash it again this year. Like, you're going to have to get to 8 or 9 wins to give yourself even a shot, and the numbers are going to have to be undeniable.
More likely to be drafted, Jalen Daniels, Hunter Dickinson.
Oh, I actually think that if Jalen Daniels has a big season, I think he's like a round 3, round 4 guy. You're not going to be a first round guy, and teams don't like to spend second round picks on quarterbacks, because it's like, if you liked him enough to pick him in the second round, you would have just drafted him in the first round where you get the extra year of control. So I don't love this. Like, the draft class is really top heavy with guys, with Caleb Williams and Drake May. But after that, there's not a lot of Quinn Ewers. Is he going to be an NFL quarterback? I'm not sure. If Daniels has another good season, he's 6'1"-ish. I don't know. We'd have to get him up against the wall and really measure to see how close he is to 6'2". But I hear that he gets called undersized. I don't really see it. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go in the 3rd or 4th round if he has a big season.
I agree with you there. I think with Hunter Dickinson, it's just so tough as a center. And if Jalen has that season, then he's going to have that opportunity. More likely to have a first-team All-American, Hunter Dickinson or any KU football player?
Hunter Dickinson. It's less competition. I think you can talk about there being 350 some odd teams in college basketball, but how many teams are you actually competing against to be like a first team All-American? You know what I mean? Like, somebody from Lehigh is not going to be a first. You could go to Lehigh and average 45 points a game. You will not be a first team All-American. Whereas in college football, it's like there's one spot for each position. So like Jalen Daniels better be the best quarterback in the entire country just to get that guy. You go on down the line. The positions where KU is most likely to get All-Americans are the toughest ones to get All-Americans at. Like, quarterback and running back. Turns out a lot of teams have good quarterbacks and running backs. So I think, again, it's just like, I know Dickinson's going to be good. I know he's going to be good. I think Jalen Daniels is going to be really good. I think Devin Neal is going to be really good. I have absolutely zero concerns whatsoever that Hunter Dickinson is not going to be one of the top 10 players in the country. And now you're just asking me, can you get into the top 5? Which I think Bill Self can get you into the top 5.
All right, I want to get to more of these either or questions in just a second. First, though, this episode of the show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. You're going to want somewhere that you can easily post your job. People can see it a lot. It's super easy on LinkedIn. People are scrolling through the LinkedIn app, checking out what their friends, family are up to. You're going to easily see those jobs, and then it's going to be easy to apply for because you got all your stuff preloaded into your LinkedIn profile. Add your job, purple hashtag hiring frame to the LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. You want to add the right team member. All these college football, college basketball teams are looking to add that one last final piece to push them over the top. Be the game changer. Make that game-changing hire. Get the right team member. Small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, some more either or questions. Do you think we get more double-digit scores for KU basketball or double-digit touchdown getters for KU football? And I will let you count the quarterbacks here with passing touchdowns.
Okay, well, that's a big one because outside of that, my first pick would be Devin Neal.
He had 10 last year.
And I don't think any receivers even got close, right? Wasn't the leading receiver like 5?
6 for the leading receiver. I think Fairchild and Grimm tied for the lead there.
That sounds about right. So I'm not, I mean, if you set the over under at 1.5, like that's where you're setting it for football, right? You're not going to set it at 2.5 because everybody would take the under. So I'm going to say 2 guys get it in football. And for basketball, I mean, Hunter Dickinson's a lock. Who averaged more points per game last year? Was it KJ Adams or was it Kevin McCullough? McCullough was right around, they're both right around the same number, weren't they?
I think it was Kevin for the season.
But they both were double digits.
Yes. DeJuan was right there. DeJuan was around 9.
Yeah. So I'm taking basketball. Because I think you're probably getting at least 3. Whereas football, I feel like you're capped at 3.
Last year was 3.
I hope it ends up going higher, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're talking about a really explosive offense. But I don't know who it would be. Like, at least I can name the names in basketball. And football, it's kind of like one of these guys might do it.
Well, it's very balanced. I guess last year it was 3, but Jason Bean was one of them if I'm giving you quarterbacks. So, barring injury, you don't expect that to happen.
Yeah.
Daniel Hishaw would have been on pace if he was healthy. We'll see where that's at. I don't know. Maybe one of the receivers emerges. I think there is a chance this is football. Like, what if Dickinson is around 18, 19 points per game, and then your second guy's around 13, 14, and then you just have a collection of like 2 or 3 guys around like 7 to 9 points.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, like, I think Dickinson's going to be more than 18 or 19 points a game. Like, I think it's going to be around 22 to 24. And that may not seem like much, but that's, if you think 18 and I think 24, that's 6 points a game. That could be the difference between someone averaging 13 and someone averaging 8, and then another guy averaging 11 and 9. So, yeah, I guess it's tougher for me to like map it out to you because I don't know who the guys in football are going to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here's some non-including Hunter Dickinson ones. More rushing touchdowns for Devin Neal or KJ Adams plus Parker Brown made 3s?
Okay, give it to me again while I ruminate.
Devin Neal rushing touchdowns, which he had 9 of them last year. Or
and then he had 1 receiving. Okay.
You get 3-pointers made by KJ Adams and Parker Brown combined, which Parker Brown, I think, has shot around 28% from 3 for his career, but there's going to be a limit on his minute ability.
Yeah. So you're basically asking me, will KJ Adams develop a jump shot? That's what you're asking me. And I feel like this is a deeper question than you're leading on, because you're basically insinuating that KJ Adams is going to need to develop a jumper in order to justify playing him at the 4. I see what you're doing here, and I like it. It's tough because KJ was never supposed to be a guy that like you just had to find minutes for. And then none of the other big guys stepped up last year, and he was that dude. And I feel like he was a stopgap guy. I think he did an interview and admitted it, and nobody ever stepped up, and he was just the dude all year. And then the coaches didn't want to take him out of the game because he did all the little stuff that nobody else was doing. And he's a very coachable player. He's a very Bill Self player. But I don't know. Have you heard whispers that he's all of a sudden just like lethal from 24 feet? Like,
No,
I just don't
I've heard it's
like
more so he's working on his mid-range game than three-point game.
And that's perfect because like his frame does not look like a guy who's just going to be, Drano from deep. So I'm going to take Devin Neal. I'm taking Devin Neal, and I just don't think those two guys are producing a lot of trays.
Yeah, and Parker Brown last year at Santa Clara was 14 of 57 from three, but that's with playing like 30 minutes a game. So
yeah he's going to play what? 5 minutes
8
a
to
game?
10? It depends how long Dickinson's going to play, yeah. Okay, more likely KU football wins 8 regular season games or they make the Final Four in basketball.
Because 8 seems like a big number for Kansas football, Derek.
It does. Also, though, the Final Four inherently is just kind of a crapshoot with the tournament.
Yeah, because if you're asking me like what would surprise me more, I would say the 8 games. Mm-hmm. But I think mathematically, making a Final Four is probably more difficult because it's single elimination tournament 4 times over just to get to that point. So I think I got to go with the 8 wins, even though it doesn't sound right. I think this is it. Your mind and your heart are playing, they're at war with each other. Your mind will tell you that, yes, it's the 8 wins, but your heart's like, no. KU football 8 wins, Kansas basketball Final Four. Like, what have I seen more of in the last 10 years? But I still think it's a numbers game. I'm taking the 8 wins with Kansas football. I'm curious where you're at on that one.
I think I would do the 8 wins as well. I was trying to, I wish there was like odds out there that you could take a team boosted because the win total for KU, depending where you look, is like 5.5, 6, 6.5. I wish there was a place that you could be like, I want to boost it and get like boosted odds. But for Kansas to make the Final Four, that's probably going off at what, like 4-1, something like that. I mean, I can't imagine if you took a bet over 7.5 wins for KU football, it'd be higher than 4-1. So yeah, I think you get the we don't even know what seed Kansas is going to be to begin with. Obviously, people are going to expect them to be a 1 or 2 seed because that's just what Bill Self does, and this team seems very talented. But I don't know, maybe things don't work out, and maybe you do end up a 3 or a 4 seed, right? But either way, like it's so tough. You don't know how your path is going to work out. The crapshoot of the single elimination. At the end of the day, it's a little easier to view 8 wins. Like if you're looking at it from the KU perspective, it looks like you're looking up at the Empire State Building. But if you look at it from a standpoint of, well, you won 6 games last year, you return all these starters, you think you have the best quarterback in the league, you think you have one of the best coaches in the league, why couldn't you win 2 more games?
You know what it is, Derek? Smarter people probably could have figured this out quicker than I did. But as you're sitting there talking, both of those teams could play flawlessly for 3 months, and only one of them would accomplish their goal.
Yeah.
Kansas football plays flawless for 3 months. They're winning at least 8 games. Kansas basketball can go undefeated in the regular season, and then they still got to win 4 straight games in March. So it's March Madness is amazing, and we love it, but it's also the most difficult tournament to win because there's so much luck involved.
All right, last one here. More likely to win Big 12 Coach of the Year, Lance Leipold or Bill Self?
It's got to be Lance Leipold. This one I feel like is an easy one. Bill Self can't win Big 12 Coach of the Year unless Kansas runs the table, or like they win
17-1 in 2020 to 21, and he still didn't win it.
Who won it that year?
Scott Drew. Of
course.
Yeah.
Because dude, it's like this fun. I love Coach of the Year awards because media will come out and they'll say, well. And this is the difference between coaches and media. Coaches will look at a team and they'll look at Bill Self and they'll be like, tremendous coaching job. Like, wow, those guys, we didn't even think this guy was a Division I player, blah, 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 blah. media will just give it to the team that they thought was going to suck the most, like the team that overachieved based off their preseason poll. And they'll be like, who could have seen this coming? Well, not you. Maybe, just maybe, you're not great at this whole evaluation thing. So it's difficult for a guy like Bill Self to ever get it, just like it is for any great coach in any great sport. But I feel like the media would almost like be ready to give it to Lance Leipold. Like, we're going into the season like, come on, Lance, just win 7 games and it's yours. Win 8 games, like, the trophy's yours. Just, show up to work, and we'll give this to you at the end of the year.
All right, let's finish up. Whose stat line is it anyway? This is Locked On Jayhawks. Finishing up, whose stat line is it anyway? I'm going to give you a stat line. We got one basketball one, one football one in theme with the crossover questions. We'll start with the basketball one. Whose stat line is this? 11.4 points per game. This is in Big 12 regular season games only. That was third on KU. Also about 4.5 rebounds per game, 59% from the field.
Okay, I feel pretty good about this, which means it's probably wrong. But a name popped into my head instantly. I'm going with KJ Adams.
KJ Adams is the correct answer, and one that we talked about a little bit earlier. But have you thought about it all? Like, what if KJ is just like this elite driver of the basketball, and now that he's going to be on slightly smaller guys, like what if he just can't be stopped driving to the rim and none of the shooting matters?
Yeah, but then you're talking about him still playing alongside Hunter Dickinson, and we've seen this before where you try to put 2 big guys who on paper are not the same player, right? They don't play the same. And I think the last one that really comes to mind is Dedrick Lawson playing with, at the beginning of the year, I guess it was Doak, and then it ended up being David McCormick. And you're like, well, and Dedrick wasn't the same, but he was kind of a floor spacer, mid-range specialist, could shoot the 3. And we're like, well, there's enough spacing out there because these guys don't play the same. It's not the same. Like, you can't take a big man and say, we're just going to play you as a wing. Now, granted, KJ is not a big man, right? He's like 6'7", and he moves like a wing. So I think there could be something there. But the only way that works, Derek, is if everyone else is sort of doing the thing that allows that to exist, right? So if you're a great spacer, then that means Hunter Dickinson the coaching staff really has to do a great job of getting Hunter Dickinson on the perimeter, creating driving lanes. That way, every single time KJ Adams is taking it to the hole, you don't have this 7-foot big dude kind of in the way, clogging things up. So I do think they're going to use Dickinson a lot on the perimeter because he can help you there. But you got to think about it through the lens of where is KU going to be at their best? They're at their best with Hunter Dickinson, who is the best post player in America, operating in the post. So I think there are going to be opportunities for it. I don't know if it's going to be KU's bread and butter.
All right, the football one. 13-game pace, 928 total yards, 16 total touchdowns.
Okay. Well, I feel like you gave me an Easter egg earlier, so I'm going to go with Daniel Hishaw.
That's right. There was your Easter egg, and the 13-game pace kind of adds to that. Those are really good numbers for if that's your number 2 running back.
He was having a phenomenal season, and I felt like he and Devin Neal complemented each other very well. And then all of a sudden, I think it was the Iowa State game, if I'm not mistaken, where Hishaw goes down, and it was like more than just like hey, this guy, landed kind of funny, or hey, this guy might miss a week. It's like, oh, this is a very serious injury. You dislocate your hip. Can you
think of anybody else because we have so much track record on, this guy came back from an ACL injury or ankle injury or whatever. I can't think of anybody else who came back from a dislocated hip. And it doesn't mean it can't happen. I just can't think of anyone.
No, it's scary. It's scary. So I would assume this guy is more equipped to come back from it than most people would be. Like most people, I'm going to go ahead and call it a career. Like if I'm playing intramural basketball, dislocate my hip, it's like, I'm going to hang him up. It's time. It's been a good run. But these guys, they have access to the best training, and they themselves are very resilient and can probably bounce back in ways that most of us couldn't even imagine. So I'm excited. I would say I'm proceeding with cautious optimism. I'm not going to get my hopes up and say that like, oh, this guy's going to be the exact same player he was last year before the injury. But he had some juice, man. And that run against Duke, I still think was one of the top 3 or 4 plays of the season for Kansas football. And if he can just bottle that up and give it to you even in doses this year, I would be really excited to see what this offense looks like and how close they can get to what they looked like the first 5 weeks last year.
All right, he's Nick Schwerdt. Give him a follow at Nick_Schwerdt on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter as well at D Johnson Radio. That'll do it for the show. Find us wherever you get any of your podcasts. Like and subscribe to the show on our YouTube page. See you next time with Locked On Jayhawks.